Günün bu saatinde
Well, at this time of the day, in this nice and beautiful city and in this nice weather, I actually do appreciate each and every one of you for being in here to listen to our session. I know it's been actually successive session and we actually get very tired, but you still have the patience to it. So I hope you will keep your attention for another hour for all of us. That's my kind request from you. Now, when you say renewable energy, and in particular, when we say the wind power, there's been several developments so far. And in particular, we'll be discussing, since actually yesterday, the role of the wind power worldwide. And we've listened to it from the very beginning of the opening remarks. And as we all know, we're just speaking about a very new technology, a young technology, and it's being used by at very high shares in the world. Yesterday, one of our ministers, and as we have listened from the representatives from Turkey as well, in 2005, the installed capacity of Turkey in 2005 was only 19 megawatts. But now it is 4,000 megawatts so far. And we actually have set a target that is for 20 gigawatts until 2020-30, and we have realized just 1/5 of this so far as of this year. However, looking at the entire potential of Turkey, and especially if we include those, especially at the average, we actually have over 40,000 megawatts of a wind potential, and we're just using 1/10 of it by now. This is the indication of what? Actually, even for Turkey all alone, for those who are willing to generate wind power and who are interested in generating wind power, it means that there are huge opportunities. And this is actually not the case for Turkey only. Of course, we will listen to the presentations of the distinguished speakers and panelists as well. I'm sure that this is something applicable for their own countries as well, in several different countries in the world, especially for the countries with higher energy demand, especially for the developing countries. I should say it's extremely important to make use of this potential, and this is actually giving a responsibility to the investors, to the governments, and it also will bring too many opportunities as well. In a short while, distinguished panelists will actually be speaking about the wind potential in their home countries, what they have done in their countries and what they plan for. I think this is what their presentation will be about. What I would like to mention, of course, I'm not one of the speakers, but maybe I can steal from some of your time. What I want to say is that in Turkey, so as to actually trigger this potential in our country, we have made several legislative amendments, and we also provide many incentives in our country. But for actually many long years, we have experienced several problems. Especially wind. Maybe in parentheses, I can say not a very reliable and not a very stable resource, I should say. And at the same time, wind, as you all know, especially not in the cities, not for the urban, but it is mostly can be generated around the forests, at the top mountainous hills, and especially there are issues with regards interconnection to the grid. But we're just more than happy because we have succeeded in overcoming these problems and we have reached to this level. I don't know, maybe we'll be able to have some new practices because we are also sharing experience in here. We are also drawing some lessons from our past experiences, so I'm sure everything will be much better in the future. I think this is the reason why it is extremely important for the countries to learn from each other, because each and every country should tell about their own practices and should help the other countries as well, because I think it is extremely important for bringing the wind power to the level required. So one of the objectives of the session is also that, especially at the MENA region and also in Macedonia, of course, what you are doing, what are the potentials, what are the problems, what are the challenges that you experience, and also to learn from each other and to help each other as well. Now, from this perspective, the very first speaker will be Nurettin Butarfa. I would like to give the floor to him. And he'll be speaking in French. But as much as I understand, his presentation materials are in English. And he's the president of Sonelgaz. Sonelgaz is actually the electricity and gas generation and distribution. In charge of this and is the largest organization. The floor is yours, sir.
Bien. Mesdames et messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen, I first of all would like to thank to the organizing committee for this congress. It's actually an intercontinental wind power congress, and I, at the same time, would like to thank them for providing me this opportunity. And I'm addressing to you in here, and we not only will be speaking about the wind power resources, but we also will be focusing on sustainable development as well. This is a very major congress from this perspective as well. Of course, it is important to meet the energy demands, and this is basic for economic and social development as well. And of course, we should be able to actually foresee for the prospects as well. Because as we all know, there are too many risks that are assumed. You also have to foresee for the risks as well. This is the only way. Now our surface area is 2.4 million square kilometer, and we have a population over 40 millions. And as Algeria, we actually have the electrification rate of over 99%, and natural gas pipe penetration rate of 53%, and more than 8 million of households has grid connection, and 4.5 million of households has natural gas grid connection. So for Algeria, what are the challenges that we have? First of all, actually, we now cover our actual energy need of 61 terawatt per hour. And by 2030, it should actually reach up to the number of 170 terawatt per hour. Of course, also by considering the industrial development as well. Of course, from this perspective, I should say, especially there is also the need to preserve the fossil resources as well. But of course, we also have to seek for sustainable energy, and they have to be developed in a systematic manner, and we also have to have energy efficiency as well. Up to recently, I should say, our energy model was mainly based on fossil resources as the natural gas, and actually it was not quite an expensive one. We mostly were directed towards the natural gas, and majority of our national demands actually were covered by the natural gas. But of course, as you all know, natural gas is actually a form of resource that may deplete soon, and therefore it's extremely important to move towards the sustainable resources, because this is the only way that we can actually preserve some of the resources for the next generations as well. And among the alternative resources, first of all, renewable into 2020, it will be for a larger scale approach. Now, as for the promotion of the wind energy, we would like to have a 50% of equipment localization by 2020, and it can only be realized through a partnership. What we're going to do is that for wind turbine mass factory will be after 2017, and then for the wind rotors, the manufacturing plant will be from 2017 to 18. And we also will create a national subcontracting network manufacturing nacelle equipment as well. And we also will promote the emergence national plan as well. Now, what are the challenges that we will have? Of course, we are just trying to develop an energy mix from this perspective. But what is important is at the same time to have the mastery of technology in engineering field, in production facilities, and this can only be possible by developing R&D. Algeria actually has major assets from this perspective in the field of renewables, and I guess what we have to do is just to continue to set our goals and pursue them. Because we have all the necessary opportunities to this end. Algeria, at the same time, has a partnership and with some different industrial groups. And in Algeria, in particular in the field of renewable energy, we will actually have partnership for the manufacturing of equipment. And this policy, of course, requires some infrastructure as well, and they also will be facilitated. And especially in engineering and renewable power, we also will have the chance to further promote our local suppliers. And we now have a standardization of systems and equipment actually to set up at the same time a good real market. And I believe that in terms of renewable energies in Algeria, we actually are trying to follow a case. And of course, the conditions and the characteristics may vary from one situation to the other. But we know that actually we have plenty of renewable energy resources, and they are respecting to environmental requirements. And Algeria at the same time would like to use the modern technology, and at the same time trying to build a good real sector. Of course, to do so, we need more time and the financial means as well. But of course, it is important for the countries to actually promote competitiveness and to actually win more market shares in the renewables based on the local industry. And of course, to boost renewable energy development, Algeria must also rely on its own human resources, energy, and economic potential, while promoting the development of cooperation and partnership among countries as well as with partners in line with such an approach. Therefore, I believe that sustainable development is an issue that pretty well go beyond the satisfaction of the energy demand as well. Therefore, today we have other concerns as well. And for sustainable development, what is important is to have partnership. We need research and science synergy, technology and know-how transfer, development of a local equipment manufacturing industry, and setting up a network of R&D laboratories as well, and also local expertise in management, operating, and maintenance of renewable plants as well, not only in developing technologies and others as well. Algeria does not want to remain a simple provider of hydrocarbons anymore. It actually has the will to become an actor on the world scene of renewable energies for the benefit of certain people. And we already have identified what the essentials are, and what we want to do is actually to satisfy our long-term energy needs, and this can only be possible by complying with strategic objectives of having access of energy by all the people of Algeria. Thank you very much.
Çok ilginç.
actually quite interesting presentation, I should say. In Turkey, for example, especially we are just targeting for the renewables, and what we thought is that 73% of the energy of Turkey is imported from abroad. We're not as lucky as you, I should say. It's 73% in our country. So we are dependent abroad, actually, for energy. And we just do not want to be relying on energy dependency. So we just thought that it would be nice to shift towards renewables. You're also selling gas to us. And at the same time, in terms of hydrocarbons, you're actually a wealthy country, but we understand that even this is the case, and even, for example, you have no problem with regards to the supply of energy, but still you are spending your best efforts so as to make use of the renewable energies, which is extremely important, I should say. And this, I believe, you're using it also as a tool for sustainable development as well. And therefore, I know we also will listen to the other countries in the region, and it also will be supported by those, I guess. And especially in Eastern Mediterranean region, it's very important to mobilize these resources, solar, wind. They have to be mobilized soon, and especially around the Mediterranean, and especially at the north. Of course, you know, for example, the European consumers are relying more on fossil fuels. The wind and the solar energy from the south may also contribute to the north as well. So, once again, congratulations for Algeria for the steps you have taken. The second important thing is that, of course, while mobilizing these resources, you're also trying to have your own industry as well. Of course, there's a marketing side of this as well. You, in your own country, the wind turbines, the solar PV panels, you can produce them, you can manufacture them, but to what extent they will be feasible? What is actually the market demand for this? You also should have calculated this, in my opinion. Now, the second speaker from Tunisia, from the Ministry of Energy.
Sorry, Abdülhamid Kafallah.
Donc, bonsoir tout le monde. Moi également, je vais ici.
I first of all would like to welcome you all to this session. I also will be delivering my presentation in French, if you allow me. Now, I first of all would like to provide you about the situation of Tunisia, what the situation in Tunisia is in terms of renewables, and then I actually will provide you with the new energy strategy of Tunisia. At the same time, now we're actually having a transition period in the field of energy in Tunisia. And then in a more detailed manner, I also will speak about what our new strategy for the renewable energy is. Then I will focus on wind energy, its potential and development. And then I, at the same time, will provide for our new regulatory framework as well. And in concluding remarks. Now, first of all, looking at the primary energy resources, as you can see, for Tunisia, and at the same time, the consumption as well. Since Again, 1990, we actually do not discover new fields for oil and natural gas. And of course, there's an increase in consumption and increase in demand as well. And especially after 2000, looking at the situation in Tunisia, it just turned into reverse. And starting with 2014 in particular, as you can see, we have quite a high deficit. So we have a negative balance, I should say. Where independents were brought by 40%, and by 2035, this will go up to 84%. This is what we prospect for. As you can see in here, in terms of the primary energy balance, what the situation is, the energy deficit, as you can see, it is increasing from year to year. There's an increase in the deficit. And at the same time, we have the governmental subsidy for energy sector as well. If you have pay attention to this, there's a huge increase, especially after 2010. We actually have quite a steady increase in subsidies for the energy. Of course, this is just bringing a big burden on the state budget as well. And the reason for this is that, first of all, we have a decrease in our national resources by 30% between these years. And at the same time, the tax on Algerian transit gas at the same time reduced by 75%. And at the same time, of course, we have the decrease of the local currency and versus US dollar at the same time by 15%. And these are actually the three main reasons that we have for the huge increase in the subsidies. Now, looking at the energy independence rate, of course, as I actually told you, we have since 1990s, you can see the fluctuating figures, as you can see on the graph, and especially this independence rate, as you can see, vary. It is now around 60% as of 2014, and probably by 2035, actually, this will be a 16% independence rate. So the remaining part should be imported. Therefore, we will have quite a huge dependence rate to abroad, and especially if we do not use the renewable energy in particular. Now let's have a look at gas. First of all, for the gas demand and its resources in Tunisia, in particular, we're just using mainly natural gas for electricity generation, and again, there is an effect of the natural gas on our policies for, in particular, the renewables. There is an increasing demand, as you can see, starting with 1990, and on the other hand, the demand gas for electricity production at the same time will increase hugely, and this will be the case by 2025, and therefore there will be we've been experiencing a deficit since 2005, and probably I can say that the natural gas production will only be serving for industrial use only, because since 2005, because we've been in a negative trend, and so as to generate electricity, we would be obliged to actually import natural gas, and in particular, of course, in the field of energy generation and in terms of the use of the natural gas, when we just look for the different scenarios, as we all know, the things are also changing. For example, if you continue just like the 84% that I showed in the previous graph, and if we have such low levels of renewables as by now, by 2035 we will actually have quite a huge demand for natural gas. It will be 12 million tons equivalent petroleum. And here you can see the electricity production by different types of fuel. And in 1990, as you can see, the situation, and 73% natural gas and 26% in oil. And looking at the situation as of 2014, electricity production by 95%, it is dependent on natural gas. and the renewable energy is only 0.3%, the 3% as you can see, and for hydro 0.3%, pretty low I should say. Now, looking at the demand for electricity is also increasing, and since 1990s, as you can see, already steady increase, and by 2030, we will be a double demand for electricity. And of course, looking at the electrification rate, and here you can see, looking at the urban, rural, and the global, we can say almost 100% in the course of 2 years. Another factor is actually there is the diversification of using a mix for electricity production. And as we all know, having an energy mix is very important. And because looking at the situation, 97% is actually used on gas, and therefore, for example, since 1994, we actually were too risky, and especially 95% of actual use of gas. However, our plan for 2030 in the mix, our plan is actually to have a 50% of gas. This is a decision taken by our government. We have a diversification strategy for electricity generation, and 30% will be renewable and 20% coal, and therefore we actually will have a better HHI, and it will also be slightly improved, and therefore we'll actually have a good mix from this perspective, but this is actually not confirmed yet. Now, how about having energy transition? And in the previous slides, as I already showed you, looking at Tunisia, I can say that the alarms bells are ringing, and it will be much more problematic in the upcoming decades, and especially big issues for energy resources. So we are just foreseeing a different model, and especially in terms of energy supply, and we actually will be focusing on different issues. First of all, know that looking at the international energy markets, they're just very vulnerable, and there are also geopolitical risks associated with this as well. And especially for the electricity sector, we have some local risk of supply as well, because we're using gas by 95% for electricity production. And therefore, we actually have more and more dependence on our energy. And of course, we have an increase on demand while we have a decrease in the national resources. And on the other hand, of course, we already have the renewable energy potential. So we decided to have a new energy strategy. Then there are 5 points. First of all, we just would like to have an energy efficiency to control the demand in particular. We also will have diversification of energy resources.
Why we have a so low price in Brazil is because the capacity factor that we have there is very high. If you take an average in the world, we are in the average something around 43%. And in this special date, it was 25th of last November. In that day, we got a 81% of capacity factor. So this is extraordinary. In that day, we provide 21% of the total power generation in the country. Spain, I guess, is providing something around that, or a little more than that, but in average the year. This was that day participation of wind, not the average in the year, but somehow is an important date for us. And between the northeast and the south, you can see how good is the northeast wind for us. On the first side, on the top, you can see that the wind there has a very narrow fluctuation in direction. You see, more than 60% of the wind is in the same direction. And the overture of that is very narrow. And in 70% of the time, the wind speed is over 8 meters per second. In the south, you have on the top side, you see how spread is the wind. You know, only 30% is in one direction. So 70% is spread out in various directions. And the wind speed, only 40% is over 8 meters per second. That is still very good. But comparing to northeast, there is a big difference. So as I said, the average capacity factor, taking the whole year and taking all wind farms in the whole country, is 43%. That is extraordinary. If you take Europe as an average, the capacity factor goes up to no more than 26%. It means that for the same investment, you have more wind to generate power and more revenue for the investment. Benefits of the wind in 2004 in the country was 3 million tons of CO2 avoid, 1.8 billion of economic charge avoided. That is very good for our participation in the matrix. And the goal is now we are leading a movement to put together biomass, solar, and wind to have more power to fight for new benefits and new care by the government in our introduction of renewable power generation, the matrix, and make them to forget a little bit the big hydro that's having problem with this environmental changes, climate changes. What are the advantages we have in Brazil? There is a state-owned bank, a development bank called BNDES, that give us a long-term financing in a very competitive cost. And they have two lines, one for developers and another one for the manufacturers. So, and for the manufacturers, they still have incentive by states to locate them there. Like Mustafa, you are saying you are doing the same in Turkey. And this is very good because you bring jobs for the country instead of importing things. And this line of BNDES on the beginning was based on percentage of local content on the manufacturer. And after a while, they discovered that this is not a very good system because you can joke, you can play with the numbers and weight of the pieces to make it a better, I would say, escape for the requirements, you see. Then they established a new process. They established parts of the equipment, the wind tower, to be manufactured in the country in a certain period of time. So they call stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the sixth one is going to finish in January next year. So when they achieve the stage 6, then you're going to have a major part of our wind tower manufacturing in the country. You can see, if you go into details, that is going to take time. You can see they start with the tower, part of the blades, part of the hub, and going on until it completes the whole manufacture of wind tower power generation. And also, the participation in money, in loans by BNDES has been increased since they began to finance our manufacturers and our developers in this industry. So they have grown 15% every year over the past year. This shows how Brazilian government is really serious about wind farm. After they took so many years to decide to face wind farms, power generation, as a good thing for the country. There is opportunity for local content. We have a consistent growth of wind power in the power metrics. We have a high demand for business service and consulting. We are very new industry in the country. We have no more than 8 years till today. So there is a lack of consulting, there is a lack of business service all over the whole industry. And we need people from Europe or from the States with more experience than us to come down and help us to improve our performance on this. Independent OEM players and training programs. Challengers. As I said, we are very early stage industry. It's a lot to be done, a lot to learn, and it takes time. But there is a lot of opportunities in labor and technology. When we speak about technology, we have to face that normally all the equipment that are made in Brazil today, they come from Europe, other states like GE. And our conditions, as I showed with the type of wind we have in the northeast and the type of wind we have in the south, they are differently. If you take northeast, the range of change directions of the wind is very narrow. So we don't need equipment that has to turn around every day looking for new directions by the wind. So we can adapt and we can develop new wind power towers, power generators with facing less equipment facing these conditions we have there. In R&D, we need R&D to adapt all this equipment for the local conditions. We have problems in the grid. Brazil is a continental country. So if you take, for example, from north to the top of the south, it's like you're going from Madrid to Moscow. So long distance for transmission lines. New technologies are needed. And of course, the space or the sites we have strong wind, good wind to explore, they don't have infrastructures to receive us. So we are running to make transmission lines to face this new.
With the coal, reducing the amount of coal to be used for the generation of the electricity. Otherwise, Poland has more than 95% of its energy generated from coal. As you see, we benefit from quite dynamic development of the industry till 2013. In 2013, the government decided to start discussion about the change of the support system for the wind industry. Up to now, we used to have the green certificate system, and this system now is replaced from the beginning of the next year with the auction system similar to the Brazilian and other auction systems in other countries. Therefore, you can see that there is a slowdown in adding new capacity. We've been able to add 800, 900 megawatt every year over 2012 and 13, but in 2014 we did only 50% of that. So we expect that this slowdown will continue for another year or two until the auction mechanism starts to work and the industry gets familiar with it. Altogether, the production of electricity from wind is about 4.5% of the electricity consumed in Poland. So we, in the energy mix, we are a relatively small player. This is the perspective that the government is envisioning based on the long-term plans for development of the Polish energy mix. Total installed capacity by 2020, where we have to meet certain obligations resulting from Poland being the member of EU, the capacity of wind in Poland should amount to about 6,500, 7,000 megawatts. But later on, by 2030, we should reach about 14,000 with over 20,000 megawatts of installed capacity in the year 2050. This is the horizon of the Polish energy policy being prepared by the government right now. As I said, we have now the binding targets for 2020, which result from us joining European Community in 2004. And obviously there is also some consequences of the 2030 climate package that was agreed among the members of European Union. This package calls for 27% of the renewable energy being produced by the European Union in 2030, which is not binding on the individual countries. So today it's too early to say what it will be exactly in case of Poland and how this obligation will be imposed on every country. We also are before the COP meeting in Paris by November of this year, which will also decide about the future of the climate policy, not only in Europe, that might influence our renewable energy policy in Poland quite significantly. Our development of renewable energy sector is also driven by the CO2 emission targets, because Poland, being almost 100% based on coal, has very tough time to meet any emission reduction at all. And without substituting the coal generation with the wind generation, we will never be able to meet the 2020 targets, 2030 targets, or any further reduction of the CO2 emission. The consumption of electricity in Poland is growing a little bit, but it's growing, therefore there is no other form of reduction of the emissions than changing the fuel. We cannot change it totally to gas because we don't have our own gas, and we import gas from Russia, which is a quite sensitive topic right now. So therefore the perspective for the renewables in Poland looks quite good. To show this perspective, the government decided to change the support mechanism and to create something which is called in the industry contracts for differences. First, we've seen this concept in Europe, in the UK, that introduced that to their market. And the contracts for difference is a 15 years contract for a fixed price, where the reference for the subsidy is the whole market price. We have a market for electricity in Poland, and it's establishing a base price for so-called black electricity. And then this contract for difference is providing for additional payment to compensate for this difference between the minimum price and the market price. This price is going to be indexed by the inflation in a similar way like in Brazil. So for 15 years, it's quite a stable tool. The banks are evaluating the Polish market in a pretty positive way. The banks like the contracts for difference scheme. Therefore, there is no problem in finding a financial institution willing to finance these investments on a fully commercial basis once this contract for difference is granted. The way the contract will be granted will be obviously through the auctions with all the consequences of the auctions where the problems that already were recognized we tried to address in our legislation by, for example, introducing the bid bonds to avoid the people to bid too low prices for the projects that will never materialize. We expect that till 2020, about 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts will be added to our energy mix in wind based on this auction system. What's important is that the change of the support system did not affect the existing projects. We were able to persuade our government to protect the rights of the investors that already invested in the wind industry in Poland. So the existing green certificate system will continue to work until the 15-year period of support will elapse. Eventually, the investors will be allowed to switch to the contract for difference, going through a separate auctions. The new projects, the projects that will be built after the 1st of January of 2016, will be only offered the contracts for difference. This is a description of this system, how it will work. We will have this green certificate system for existing projects and the new system, auction system, for projects which are divided also in three categories. They are small projects below 1 megawatt and large projects above 1 megawatt. In the last moment, the Polish Parliament added to the support system the feed-in tariffs for very small installation, the micro installation up to 10 kilowatts, but this is not relevant in case of wind industry. In our opinion, the contract system based on contracts for difference guarantees that investors will have pretty stable and predictable situation. They will benefit also from the indexation of their contracts with the inflation, which gives a good protection against changes in price fluctuation. And the pre-qualification procedure should take care of the problems that were discussed previously in case of Brazil, that the companies that will be participating in the auction will have to present certain financial strength and also will have to have the projects in a very advanced development stage, basically ready to build, to be accepted for the auction. This system is well recognized by the financial institutions.
Power is important. Of course, they a little bit lag behind because of the investment costs in particular, and especially the unit cost generation is actually maybe less when compared to the conventional methods. But especially we know that the hydrocarbons will not be available in the long term, and it's actually very important, therefore, to develop alternative resources of energy. Also considering the climate change and the environmental problems, and also considering the fact that the costs also will be reduced soon, and therefore specific to wind power and at the same time renewable power in general should be considered. Of course, renewable energy at the same has also can be used at a decentralized manner. I mean, especially for the rural populations or for the people living in remote areas, it also can be possible to provide for energy. So there will be actually equal development all around the world, all around the country. We're just speaking about solar and wind power. They almost can never deplete, and therefore in Algeria we are actually paying a lot of attention to these two forms of alternative energy for our prospects for the future. Now, looking at the inventory for renewable energy in Algeria, especially for solar power, we actually have over 5 million terawatt per hour annually. And we have solar irradiation over 2,000 hours per year, and sometimes it can even go up to 3,000 hours per year. And in average, we actually have 2,700 solar irradiation hour per year. In Spain, it is 2,250 again per hour per year kilowatt, and it's around 1,000 for Germany. And especially the southern region, we have quite vast areas there, and especially there, we possibly can use the solar power systems, and they actually can meet majority of our demands, I should say. And here at Janet, you can see a case of the solar power center that we have. Now, in terms of the wind potential, of course, we are actually paying attention to the use of the renewable energy mainly. And besides the solar power, wind potential at the same time is very important for Algeria. And of course, the wind potential varies from one region to the other. However, we have a potential of around 25 terawatt hour per year, especially through the north. We actually have less wind speed than through the south, in particular, especially in southeast around the Adra region. We actually can go up to quite nice wind speeds. Here you can see the photos of the wind power installations. In Algeria, we also have geothermal potential, which is playing a major role. We actually have nearly 240 thermal sources, and the temperature ranges between 19 to 98 degrees centigrade. And besides the geothermal potential, and they're also located at the north, also at the south, we actually have some good resources from the geothermal potential perspective. And again, the water can actually vary between 30 to 70 degrees centigrade for the temperature. For hydropower, looking at the potential in Algeria, it's 0.5 terawatt hour per year. And we actually have mobilized almost all of them, I can say. And also, besides, they are actually at a minimum level when compared to the other resources. Of course, so as to maximize the use of the renewables, Algeria also enacted the necessary legislative and regulatory framework. Especially, we have 4 specific laws. They actually give the definition of the renewable energy, and at the same time helps for their adoption, and at the same time for further development of the energy. We also have a national fund from this perspective, and thanks to this fund, at the same time, we continue with some scientific researches as well. We also have 3 regulatory bills as well, and therefore, especially, we are just trying to make the renewable energy much more functional, and also it provides for some feed-in tariff as well. Therefore, there's also purchasing guarantee as well. Now, Of course, by way of widely using the renewable energy, we are also trying to preserve and save for the fossil resources as well. And therefore, we are trying to maximize the utilization of the natural gas as well. But of course, even if we have quite a huge solar and wind potential in Algeria, we actually do not have the industry to transform it into the industrial use as well. I mean, no, we cannot just turn it into electricity yet. And this is because of this reason that we also have to establish the necessary scientific and industrial environment, and we need the necessary equipment to this end as well. And this is the only way that we can have a good renewable power technology as well. We, as I told you, have quite a high potential for renewable energy, and we were just thinking to ourselves, maybe we not only can satisfy our own needs, but at the same time, we also can actually export the energy as well. And this is the reason why the development of the renewables is actually not only an important option for the preservation of the hydrocarbons, but at the same time, the government is just trying to promote such a climate that we should be able to adopt the basic technologies, and we also should have more local content in terms of manufacturing and services as well. And this can be achieved by relocating from the north to the south, and also through a south-south collaboration. And this approach, I guess, will also encourage our companies to keep up with the technology and services. And it also will be useful for the companies to better compete with each other. Now, of course, Algeria set a strategy and a vision so as to make it much more concrete. And this strategy is actually aiming to satisfy the local energy demand. And also we have a principle that is the local content in manufacturing of the equipment. And another target that we have is at the same time to have its own power industry. I mean, the service, the equipment and everything, the operation, the maintenance and everything will be provided by Algeria. And therefore, we actually have a national program for development. It's been adopted in 2011 and updated in 2015. And the aim of this program is actually to achieve a ratio of around 30% in the national consumption of electricity by 2030 among all consumption of energy. And at the same time, once we have the introduction of renewables in the energy mix, it also would be a major challenge to us for further preservation of the fossil fuels. And at the same time, we will have the chance for diversification as well. For 2030, now 13,500 megawatts of photovoltaic and 5,000 megawatts of wind power, 2,000 megawatts of CSP with storage, 400 megawatts in cogeneration, 1,000 megawatts in biomass, and 15 for geothermal. These are the visions and prospects that we have. And we also, in our national energy program, we will be dedicating 10,000 megawatts for export purposes as well. And from this perspective, I can say some concrete decisions are taken, and we already have a fund for renewable energy, and we also introduce certain incentives as well. And we are also trying to actually have the development of the local engineering opportunities through building partnerships. And at the same time, we are also constructing the energy projects on our own. And at the same time, we are trying to use all the local skills as well, and so as to improve further the market. This strategy is in three stages. Between 2014 and 16, the pilot projects to test the different technologies. Between 2015 and 16, we'll begin the program implementation. In 2006, sources mainly the renewables, and we also will continue with the development of the oil and gas exploration. And our main goal is to rationalize the subsidies as well, subsidies given by the government. And also, we would like to reinforce the electrical interconnections with the neighboring countries. We also have ongoing studies on this. Now, let's have a look at energy efficiency first. Actually, in terms of energy efficiency, it's actually a virtual energy resources. The virtual one is the cheapest one, which is actually the energy that is not consumed. I mean, for example, when we make a comparison between natural gas and oil, this actually renewables is the cheapest one. So we decided to implement a strategy, energy efficiency strategy. And this is actually quite a determinant strategy. By 2030, by 35%, renewable energies will be the primary energy. And as for the primary energy sources, and as for renewable energies, especially, we actually have for renewables and for wind in particular, it is 3% as of 2013. However, according to the decision taken by the government, by 2030, the share of the renewables will be by 30%. Therefore, it will be 30% among the entire share. And for the fossils, for the conventional resources, it will be capped, including coal, by 70%. Now, a couple of words about the wind energy in Tunisia. Actually, that is the topic of the Congress. Actually, Tunisia has has a wind atlas since 2009, and this atlas provides data, and we prepared this in cooperation with Spain. And you can see the potential on this atlas. And it is estimated to be 8 gigawatt. And at the same time, there are very good sites with good wind speed. And at the same time, in terms of the capacity factor as well. And we have quite good resources. In Tunisia, at the northeast, we actually have 2 power stations. One is Sidi Daoud, and it is located at the northeast. This project was a 3-phase project between 2003 and 2009. And it has 54 megawatt of power, and the capacity factor is 27%. The second power station in the north, at the very north, is the Cap de Metlin, and constructed between 2011 and 13 with the capacity of 190 megawatts, and capacity factor is 23%. Now, of course, in developing the new renewable strategies, we have our goals for 2030, and this will be again 20% from the renewables, as I told you, and again there will be in total 4 gigawatt, and this will be the distribution over the wind, 1,750 from wind, 1,500 from solar, photovoltaic, and 450 CSP, and 300 megawatts will be from biomass. And the total of the investments will be $6 billion. Now, at the same time, we need the contribution of the private sector as well. Therefore, public-private partnership is considered, and these are what we consider for this. So there will be public-private partnership. And here you can see there is the need for a new legislative process. For this, you need to make the reforms. In 2012, above all, our government actually enacted a new law in the field of renewable energy and production of electricity out of this. So the private sector is also allowed to produce electricity thanks to this new law. And this, I can say, is actually an important step taken, having also the contribution of the private sector. This is also will be presented for parliamentary approval this week. We have taken other measures as well. These are the supporting measures so as to achieve our goals. And the regulatory reforms, we need some institutional and reforms as well, and capacity building and reinforcement of the absorptive electrical system capacity as well. For regulatory reforms, we, for example, now have conditions for access to the electricity grid, and we also set some conditions for purchasing electricity from the renewable resources as well. And probably it will be the case in the upcoming years. Another important factor is, of course, to institutional reform, to have an independent electricity regulator. Capacity building is important. You have to train all the stakeholders, the public, the private sector, the banks. Also, we need some R&D studies as well to do so. Another important thing is that especially we also have to do something about the transmission network. We have to reinforce it, and especially for dispatching this system is important. And now this is actually the new law for the renewable energy. This is actually, first of all, about the production of electricity, and we can export, use it at the local market or as a self-production. And from the side of the export, there will be some concessions to be given following the tender, and then there will be concession following a tender for large-scale plants and authorization system for small-scale plants. It will be mainly in the form of feed-in tariffs, and also there will be authorization so as to sell for the surplus. The system will allow for this. And especially there will be at the maximum 30%. And there will be concessions to be given, and also some permission and the licensing system. So we also will have exportation and local market and self-production. And the concessions will be given in both arms after competitive bidding. And at the local market there will be a preliminary agreement, and there also will be an operating license. And for self-production, it only will be in particular subject to permission licensing given. So this is actually the end of my talk. This is my email address as well. If you need further information, I can provide. We also have our websites as well for the Ministry of Industry and Energy. I also would like to thank to the distinguished speaker for his talk. Actually, you have shown us two different cases, and also in Algeria, for example, there was actually a motivation behind it, and the motivation in Tunisia is different. Tunisia is a little bit like us. I mean, you just would like to reduce the dependence to abroad, and you just wanted to maximize and optimize your own resources, and at the same time to have energy security as well. Of course, it is very important to have the grid interconnection as well. Also, we have the regulatory framework perspective. You also mentioned about the public-private partnership as well. So we know that there are some different practices all around the world. And also, Turkey at the same time has been taking some steps, and we have also drawn a lot of lessons out of this. And therefore, I know that Tunisia and Turkey can make a good cooperation from this perspective because we're similar. And for example, you're just very similar to what we've been doing 6, 7, or 10 years ago, because we were also thinking in a different manner. Because in Tunisia, you're now thinking about this, and therefore, as I told you, Turkey actually also has done many pluses and minuses, the good things and the bad things. So I'm sure that it could actually be a good case for Tunisia, in my opinion. And so I think between Ministry of Energy of Turkey and Tunisia, I'm sure that there will be some nice cooperation. Now the third speaker. Let's just move towards the east. Now Jordan. We have Ziad Jebril Sabra, advisor to the minister, and we'll be speaking about the situation in Jordan, what you're doing in the field of renewables and specifically for wind. Yes, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon. Really, it's a pleasure to be here today in the beautiful city of Istanbul, and I would like to thank the organizers, the Turkish government, and the Turkish Wind Energy Association. It's really, I'm really coming, as Mr. Moderator said, I came from the east of the Mediterranean, so I'm a little bit different from my colleagues from Algeria and Tunisia. My country, Jordan, really is a small country, and we are a big importer of energy. We import almost all our needs. We don't have natural gas or conventional resources. Although we have an energy strategy till the year 2020, and we set a lot of targets to have renewables, shares, and others. But we faced a lot of problems and challenges really to achieve our targets. So I could admit and say that the last 5 to 7 years, when you show my slides later, the 5 to 7 years was a good learning exercise for the Jordan government to benefit from the lessons learned here and there, and to know what the investors exactly need, because we used to float tenders, launch bids, and in the midway, we canceled those tenders because there is no clear vision. There are a lot of gaps have to be put in place before you float tenders. And so really, you can see now what Jordan has achieved. So till we set the strategy in 2008, till now, we don't have any working or operational wind project. But now I can announce in front of you that now we have 1,000 megawatt of wind and solar, half-half, under development in Jordan. 200 of them under construction. By the end of this year, they will be operational. So I will brief you now. I'm pleased to tell you what we have done so far in Jordan in order to meet our challenges and to cut the electricity bill where it's a big burden on Jordan. So I will start by giving you some indicators for the Jordan electricity sector. You know, Jordan is a small country. We are about 5.5 million inhabitants, and this is the total installed capacity in Jordan, 3,800 megawatt. The peak load is about 3,000 megawatt. Per capita consumption is one of the good figures in the region, 2,235 kilowatt. I could say that all the Jordanians have access to electricity, so 100% of Jordan areas have access to electricity. At the same time, those are the challenges and opportunities we have in Jordan. As I told you, we are a big importer of energy. We import more than 97% of our needs. And this import energy really constituted about 18% of our GDP, so a big burden on the economy. Also, we have high annual growth rate in the energy sector, 5% annually. And we have, at the same time, high annual growth rate of electricity. demand, which is about 7%. At the same time, we do have good local resources like oil shale. Jordan ranked the 5th in the world in the oil shale deposits, but the development of this file really is much related to the oil prices. All the studies shown that if the oil price below $50 per barrel, it's not feasible to touch this file. That's why now we have succeeded in the oil shale business. And we do have good wind and solar resources. As you can see from these figures and maps, we do have a wind atlas. I could say that Jordan was a pioneering country in the region to develop the wind atlas. It is similar to the European wind atlas, was developed in 1990 with the help of the Danish RISO laboratories. So this wind atlas is a good tool really for investors to identify their sites. And according to this wind atlas, we could find some sites with good wind speeds. And I could say that wind energy now is mature enough. You know, the wind industry started earlier in the 80s before the PV and CSP and solar technologies. And wind energy now is a competitive technology. There is no need for concessional support or incentives mechanisms as compared. You know, the western part of Jordan is really the most windy areas where most of the developers you can see later are working there in that areas. And the solar energy also, we have good solar resources in Jordan, in the sun-built area, as you know, and we have good figures. But we know that still the cost of PV and CSP is still high. Now, the picture has changed, or the image has changed regarding the PV solar. I think most of you are aware that PV solar now the cost is sinking down, and there is a risk here to the wind industry. So most of the government might shift to the PV industry. And this is the energy strategy really which we have developed in 2008 till 2020, where you can see now we import, in the first slide at the top, we import 97%. Our aim is to cut the imported energy by 2020 to be 61%. So 30%, 35% should come from local resources. The wind, the renewable energy is 10% in the total energy mix, I mean here. So our contribution from renewable will be 10% by 2020. We have also oil shale will contribute either for producing oil or electricity generation, 14%. And also we have nuclear power plants will contribute to 6%. And we have oil and gas explorations. We might find something around our neighbors, Saudi Arabia and Iraq, where they are rich of oil. So we hope we could find something. I could say that these are the lessons we have learned actually from the past 5 to 7 years. We found that in order for the renewables to have its right position in the total energy context, we should have a stable political and regulatory framework. Also, you should have adequate, transparent public policies and targets, clear financial and support schemes and mechanisms, well-defined infrastructure provisions such as land, grid connections, grid capacities. So I think those are the main parameters which we worked on them hardly, and I could say that Jordan is at the right path. So our target 10% renewables is achievable. We set in terms of capacities, those capacities as you can see, 1,000 megawatt of wind and 600,000 of megawatt solar, maybe solar PV by the year 2020. We might change this mixture depending on the technology cost and the maturity of the projects. And we are working so hard to achieve those targets. In terms of the regulatory framework, we really have a dedicated renewable energy law for renewable energy. This law was passed in 2012. And I could say this law is the first of its type in the region dedicated to renewables. And the main important thing is the so-called direct proposals schemes or unsolicited proposals. You know, the way of developing projects in most countries should be through competitive bidding process. Now we convinced the government and the decision makers and the parliamentarians also that renewable energy is different than conventional power plants. They are not base load, they are not, so they are opportunity projects, they are fuel savings, they are new technologies, know-how, environmental issues. So we managed to put in the law that the ministry is allowed to receive direct proposals from investors. So if there's any investor who would like to develop a wind project, he can submit directly a direct proposal to the ministry with certain conditions. Those conditions I would like to brief you because this is a new scheme and we succeeded in this scheme, and you will see in later slides the 1,000 megawatt almost came from this direct scheme, direct proposals. We think the direct proposal scheme is the fast track and with low risk to the government. The most important conditions with the direct proposals, they were in the law, is the similar experience. So if you would like to develop a 50 megawatt wind project, you have to show me your references that you have developed similar size and it's operational. Number two, you have to submit as an investor a complete proposal, financial, technical, lenders, suppliers, the site. You should, as a developer, select your site. It is not the government who should provide the location or the site of the project. So it should be selected from the investor and it should be on private land, not on public or government lands. Government lands are kept for competitive bidding process. So those are the conditions clear from day one. Number three is the price. So you should submit, you should show me the price of electricity you are going to sell out of your project, and this price should be acceptable in accordance with the so-called reference price list. They are not feed-in tariffs, they are ceiling prices. So all the proposals should be submitted below this ceiling, and it's up to the government to select the best of submissions. So these are the main conditions of the direct proposal schemes, and really we proceeded in this direct proposal in several rounds. So we announced in certain time of the year that we opened the door to receive proposals in solar and wind, you know, because they are mature technologies. And we proceeded in this way. We have now 3 rounds of direct proposals. I will list them later to you. So the renewable law is really, with the direct proposal scheme, is a success story for Jordan. Also the reference price list, also it is clear for the bidders what are the ceiling prices, and they are announced by the Regulatory Commission, the Electricity Regulatory Commission. They are on our website, on the Regulatory Commission website. Each type of renewables, for example, the wind energy price, ceiling price is 11 US cents per kilowatt hour. So the price should be below 11 US cents per kilowatt hour. For the solar PV, it is 14 US cents per kilowatt hour. And there is for biomass, biogas, and other sources. So those are really well defined and known for everybody. We have now for small scale net metering rooftop systems also, all the regulations are in place, and we have really succeeded in this scheme. So all residential areas, industries, hotels, they are allowed to install their own rooftop systems and cover their needs and sell the excess power to the grid. Now the price of this excess power is a fixed price. So there is, you can say there is a feed-in tariff for small scale renewables to cover the energy needs of the industries and the residential areas. And we have also the tax incentives regime. We have bylaw for exempting all renewable energy and energy efficiency equipments from sales tax and customs duties. It is by law, so nobody can change, you know, the financial departments, or they would like to earn more money, but there is a bylaw, nobody can violate this bylaw. Also, you know, as we heard in the morning, without the grid reinforcement and the grid capacity studies, you cannot evacuate the renewables. We cannot float figures 1,000, 2,000 megawatt, and we don't know our grid capacity what will be. So we did our study for the grid capacity, so we know exactly where are the locations, where are the capacities we can receive from wind and solar. And also the grid utility, the off-taker, is now also conducting the so-called Green Corridor project to allow also more renewables to be absorbed in order to reach our target, which is 1,600 megawatt by 2020. Also, we have established, as a financial framework, we have established a fund. It's called Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Fund, in order to provide financing for mainly energy efficiency schemes and also pilot renewable projects, solar water heaters, PV rooftop systems. So there is a business plan for this fund, and the funding resources for this fund is donation from foreign institutions and annual budget allocations. So you have to have annual budget allocations in order to show to donors that also the government is committed to have financing and to maintain the sustainability of the fund. Now, this is the main subject of the renewable energy development. As I told you, now we have 1,000 megawatt of wind and solar PV project under development. 200 megawatt will be operational by the end of this year. I could say that we have also 400 megawatt of this 1,000 signed contracts, signed PPAs, and they are now under financial close, and within the next 2-3 years they will be operational. And as you can see, we went into 3 or 4 tracks approach to develop renewables. Direct proposal scheme, as I told you. We have competitive bidding, and this competitive bidding is limited to government lands, where we have a land for the government, well studied, so we can float a tender to be transparent for everybody. And we have EPC turnkey solutions, where we receive some grants. We received last year from the GCC, the Gulf, some grants to develop wind and solar projects. So those projects will be owned by the government, and we ask for a turnkey solutions. And we have the small-scale renewables net metering scheme. So these are the way we are working in Jordan on the renewable file. And those are the list of projects really we are developing. This first list is the projects under construction. We have the first wind project on BOO basis, built on operate, 117 megawatt, maybe the first of its type in the region, to be operational by end of August this year. They are using Vestas machines, 3 megawatt size. And we have a PV solar project. It was granted to a local manufacturer. We have in Jordan one manufacturing company for solar photovoltaic systems. And we have this another 66 megawatt wind project funded through the Kuwaiti fund, also developed in the EPC turnkey solutions. They are using Gamesa machines, and it will be operational by the end of this year. Also, though, we received some Spanish grants to develop about 5 megawatt photovoltaic projects. They will be operational by end of April, actually, the coming month, 5 megawatt. So they will be the first project we have to celebrate. And those are the other projects which are under development through the direct proposal scheme, round 1, round 2. For round 1 wind, you know, for the wind proposals, we gave them 2 years to develop their projects, because they have to have 1 year measurements. And that's why by end of September last year, we received 4 proposals, 230 megawatt of wind projects, also under final negotiations. So this is also will be an addition from the wind side. We have the first round photovoltaic projects, 200 megawatt. They just completed the financial close. Their financiers, IFC, EBRD, and EIB. So they concluded their financial close, and some of them, they will be operational by the end of this year, and the majority will be next year. And those, the second round BV also, we have to do another 200 megawatt will be also, they are under evaluation. And we have also another wind project, 90 megawatt, also under negotiation. So those are the, and we have also a PV project from the Abu Dhabi fund developed under the EBC turnkey solutions. It's under pre-qualification now. So we are engaged in a lot of processes now in Jordan to have. And these are for small scale renewables. As I told you now, all residential areas, people, hotels, industries, they are allowed to install their own rooftop system and install and sell the excess power. I could say now we have about 15 megawatt distributed systems all over Jordan, and we have another 20 megawatt waiting the installations. And in conclusion, as you can see that I could say that Jordan has laid down all the necessary policy and regulatory frameworks and ready to receive commercial investments in renewable energy. This is very important also, you know, because of these rounds, we developed a template contractual documents. Now we have template PPAs, power purchase agreements, for wind and for PV. They are bankable, acceptable to big financiers. So the time of development and execution will be much faster and much easier. Now the second round of direct proposal will be much easier to proceed because we have template PPAs and contractual agreement. And also the grid reinforcement is under process in order to absorb more renewables to meet our targets. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sabra. As far as gördüğümüz kadarıyla
Actually, Jordan has also taken some concrete steps, and they have also set some concrete goals and targets, and you're just really working hard, and you've developed some nice programs to this end. And just one sentences that I wanted to get as an inspiration from your talk. In general, the cost of the renewable energy resources is actually higher when compared to the conventional. It's actually somehow much more somehow expensive, and also there actually could be a increase in cost in developing these things. But there are two things which is important, I should say. First of all, as for the renewable energy, of course, due to the advancements in technology, we now have a reduction in the cost in renewables, which is something so important. But more important than that, of course, to what extent the conventionals are priced realistically, because I know it. In some of the countries, there are some subsidies given for fossil fuels, and trust me, we know the countries that are selling at very lower prices despite of the subsidies given. For example, especially the subsidies given to the people, to the public, they do not actually, I mean, the prices are not reflected well to the people, so it's an obstacle, a barrier in front of developing more renewable energy resources. Therefore, the subsidies to be given to the fossil fuels should be lifted if we want to promote more renewables. Thank you very much for your talk, sir. And the last speaker, again from the MENA. This time, we have actually the very last speaker. And of course, after the presentations, I also will get back. I mean, we will ask, it's not a MENA country, but actually a neighbor country to us, I should say, Macedonia. And now let's have a look at Macedonia and what are the new developments in Macedonia. What you planned for, what you did. Ismail Luma will be taking the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to keep as short as possible, maximum 5 minutes, then we'll have the time for question and answer. Republic of Macedonia as candidate country of EU actively works on the harmonization of legislation with EU, especially in the field of renewable energy sources. Here I would like to mention the Directive on Renewable Energy, which is the frame for all future projects in this field. Global commitment to environment protection, security of supply, and dependence of Macedonia provide the need for greater diversity and thus security of energy supply, increase the participation of renewable energy sources in final energy consumption, and promoting energy efficiency. That is one of the main strategic objectives of our country. In the Republic of Macedonia, there are favorable conditions for use of renewable energy sources, such as hydropower. Yes? Okay? Yes. We are building mostly small hydropower plants through the concession procedures. Then there are conditions for photovoltaic and wind, biogas and biomass through promotion of feed-in tariffs. Lately I will tell especially for the wind power plant how are the feed-in tariffs and the price, which is very important for this event. We as a country have put it the target until 2020, 21% in the final consumption to be from the renewable energy sources. It is very important to mention it that also Mr. Chairman mentioned it, the projects on interconnections are very important. We as a country that are member of energy community, we are working hardly on the regulation on the trans-European energy infrastructure projects. We are preparing projects with the neighboring countries also on this regard. Regarding the feed-in tariff, the government is promoting this by feed-in tariffs, and for the wind power plant, the price for feed-in tariffs is 8.9 euro cent per kilowatt, and the period of feed-in tariffs is 20 years. The total installed capacity till 2025 in the country is 150 megawatt. So till now in Macedonia we have built the first wind power plant. It is in the south part of the country, Bogdanci wind power plant with installed capacity of 36.8 megawatt and expected energy generation up to 100 gigawatt hour. During this Congress, we have opportunity to meet and to exchange views with all the participants, and this is very important in the future realization of the projects to exchange more knowledge, ideas, and experience from the countries. Regarding the procedures, permission, and stuff like that, I will left for the discussion, so I will left to Mr. Chairman sometimes for questions from the audience, so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Makedonya'nın durumu bize başka bir...
Actually, the situation in Macedonia is telling us something else. Of course, there are specificities of each and every country. For example, in Algeria, looking at Algeria, for example, you actually have quite a huge consumption of energy at one side. Looking at Macedonia, for example, and or somehow maybe for Jordan, you actually can afford actually, or you actually can have at the same time smaller scaled projects, because this is important for your demand. But you have a huge potential. Therefore, in finding the solutions, I think we should not only consider it from the perspective of each and every country. Just like in Macedonia, it's also important to cover a certain region. And also regional interconnection, therefore, is extremely important to develop them, because this is the way that we actually can better use the renewables. Because if you mobilize the regional, especially forces, it also will be a contributing factor, in my opinion. So, distinguished participants, now, so far, each and every speaker provided us a picture, an overall picture in their country. And so, any question from the hall? Also, please introduce yourself before you ask your question. And then later on, we can make a wrap-up. I will just give you the words. Any question from the audience? I think no questions. Is there anything? I think you wanted to say something, right?
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think regarding what you have raised, the prices of oil and gas, you know, Jordan we don't have natural gas, so we used to produce our electricity depending on the heavy fuel and diesel, which is really costly. And the prices I have shown to you, the ceiling prices for renewables did not came randomly. We did a study for all the generation costs in Jordan for each type of fuel, and we concluded those ceiling prices. We know that, and those ceiling prices are going to be reviewed annually by the regulator. So depending on the cost of generation in Jordan, if you're going to use another source of generation like natural gas, or we might have some oil shale later as a local resource, so or the technology cost of wind and solar might come down. So there is a yearly revision of the prices. We know that now the price of PV solar is sinking down, and we are expecting to receive really very encouraging price, maybe single-digit US cents per kilowatt hour. But really those prices, we did a study and we came with those prices in order first to encourage investors to come, because they are local resources, there is security of supply, diversify of energy resources. But we know that there is some subsidy, or there is some increase in those levels, because in order to attract investors, and the first example will be a good learning exercise. So once you proceed with certain exercise, you have to give more to investors, and later you can phase out those incentives depending on the technology, the maturity of the market. And so this is the way we are really looking to the prices.
Thank you very much. Any other contribution from valuable speakers? If not, yes, please.
Moi, je voudrais simplement
Şunu söylemek istiyorum.
Now, what I would like to say is,
Enerji ve rüzgar ve
especially speaking about renewables and wind and solar, this is not something that actually becomes popular recently. It's okay, we have the sun, we have the wind, but it's not adequate, of course. Now, if you are importing energy, and if you do not have the technology in hand, it means that you'll be just moving from one import to the other, and from the primary energy production, you will just move to the import of this time technology. Looking at the renewables, I think there are different dimensions, and what I would like to focus on, we have to be able to make a comparison, and we have to be able to at the same time reduce the dependence. We have to optimize the local resources. This also will help us also to reduce the cost. We should have a vision of 3 decades ahead, and I think this is the only way that we can become a good player in the long run. Thank you.
Ben de teşekkür
I also would like to thank you. Actually, especially, I've also made a comment on local manufacturing, and actually my comment was mainly because of the fact that in Turkey we are also doing something similar. For example, if in the renewable, let's assume, for example, the wind turbine. I mean, if the feed-in tariff is 7.73, for example, for solar, for the wind turbine, but for that wind turbine, the tower, the blades, and all the other electromechanical equipment, if they are manufactured in Turkey, then we just give another premium on the top of this. This is what we are also doing in Turkey. Okay, distinguished guests. So once again, in this nice city, in this nice day, and you just still have your attention with us, and thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a nice day. I hope the traffic would be good in Istanbul, and I wish you all a nice day. Thank you. And meanwhile, also to our panelists, I actually would like to present them a certificate, and in appreciation of your attendance to the conference.
Just when I've broken down.